Tonight, Greg describes his ideal Halloween haul.
An actual full-sized Reese's cup candy bar.
Sahil says the thing.
Christianity is our strength.
And Parker tells us who Pierre-Luc Saturdays are for.
Pierre-Luc Doughboys.
All right, and welcome back to another episode of Who Cares You Suck, the premier M-SABR Dynasty Hockey podcast. I'm Parker, with me are Parker and Andrew, and we got a great slate of weekly recaps for you today. How are we feeling?
I'm feeling
We're good.
I won.
I won.
Did you win, Greg?
I did win.
Oh,
The
that's good news.
boys. Pierre-Luc Doughboys, the podcast host with the sweep this week. And Greg becomes the only undefeated team. Greg, how are we feeling?
Surprised. Surprised is the word of the day, Parker. I thought that I would be 2-1 if we're going by my weekly picks. You thought I would be a bottom tier team if we're
Let's not
going
talk
by
about
your
this. Let's
preseason predictions. Oh, I think we should.
I think we just need to see the girls play the Captain Charas.
Well, we'll leave it out on the field and let our records speak for themselves. But as it stands, I mean, my team has managed to avoid the pitfalls that did me in last year, and I've managed to compensate for what weaknesses remain on my roster. I'm really excited with how I've been playing. My team seems to be clicking really well. I don't have too many outlier players who are tearing it up, and I feel like the players of mine who aren't performing as well are going to regress to a better talent level. Looking at you, Nick Suzuki and Jacob Chikrin.
Yeah, Andrew, how do you think your team did this week?
It was, you know what? We'll get into it in a moment, but it was not as close as the score might suggest. That'll be my teaser for my take on my match.
Oh, Andrew's teasing us? Back-to-back sexual episodes for Andrew?
No, of course not. I would never tease my listeners. No, but on the
Yeah,
real,
you
though,
just take them out no matter what.
but
Take me to dinner first, at least. Jeez.
but on the real, we do have one team that is 3-0, and that's Greg. Congratulations. But we do also have a team that's 0-3, and it's the Infinity Stromes. And this is a team that I had in my season predictions going into the playoffs. What do you guys think? Do you think he's a little unlucky, or is this team really as bad as the record is reflecting it to be?
I don't think they're as bad as their record. I think that Conor was the victim of matchup luck a couple of these weeks, but I feel like each week he's started to put up less encouraging numbers. And if you look at his matchup against Ratatouille, I'll just say that this one wasn't particularly close, and I think that should start setting off some alarm bells.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, that and much more to come on the episode.
3 weeks in, and we're already seeing some surprises. But hey, why don't we get into the first, matchup? And I think this one is a surprise, right, Greg?
Yeah, this was by far the biggest surprise. This was an Ohio State Fuckeyes really trying to change that indefinite article to become the Ohio State Fuckeyes. And they're trying to earn it pretty hard. And they got a 7-5 convincing victory against Every Villain is Lemons. And I mean, we always talk about the potential that Trent's team can put up. He showed us what that potential looks like. He put the works on the champs. I mean, evil goalies were disappointing, and we saw that with only one goalie putting up a save percentage over 900. We saw evil still out peripheral, but every skater category outside of peripherals and assists went to Trent. He managed to grind out a low-scoring special teams category. He won each of those by just one single tally. But, I mean, he swept the goalie categories. He did just enough in the scoring categories to flip the necessary margins, and he shows that on his best day, he can hang with any team.
Yeah, that goes to show how important goalie categories are. They quite literally won him the week, and I mean, Evil not getting the goal output they wanted, sure, but this is just an impressive week out of Trent's goalies, holding on in the peripherals, holding on or sorry, not the peripherals, in the rate stats, and holding on rather in the power play points. Just an upset that actually none of us predicted this week. We all called Evil to win, and it wasn't going to be close. Trent listened. The fuck eyes listened, and what a way to grind out a win against what we think is one of the top 3 teams in the league.
Absolutely.
Totally, but I want
don't
to
get
add
me
one thing
wrong.
here with the goals. Evil only 9 goals on the week.
Yeah.
Is this starting to become a problem? Because I know when I played them the week before, they were short on goals, I believe, until the last couple of days, and they finally started to pop off. Is this cause for concern for Evil?
They've
We'll have them
had
later
some
on the
guys,
show, but
no, they've had some guys injured, and I think the biggest issue for Evil right now is in their defensemen, because a good defenseman can really put your team over the top, and they just don't have too many guys who are quarterbacking those power plays. I mean, Ivan Provorov has taken a bit of a back seat. Even with Ryan Ellis hurt, he's not seeing very much power play time. I mean,
Yeah.
and who else is up there? They got rid of Jacob Slavin, who wasn't seeing much power play time already, but he was pretty highly drafted by them. I'm looking at like Mackenzie Weegar. I'm looking at Ryan Pulak might be their best power play defenseman
No, he's not
right
on power
now.
play.
He
He's
he
on
had a
power.
special.
He's on power play too.
Yeah, and that says a lot. I think
On
if
the
I'm
Islanders.
Evil, yeah, I think if I'm Evil, I really have to think about going out and getting a power play, maestro. I mean, because when you put up 2 special teams goals, 4 special teams assists in 1 week, you gotta wonder that, is it sustainable? Maybe, maybe not, but it's something to address for sure.
like I said, we'll have them later on the show kind of get their input on that even maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. We'll have to try and talk to them about that. But yeah, I think going back to what Parker said, the 9 goals, that might not be so concerning. What should be more concerning is only 109 shots. You look at all of the other top competing teams, they're logging at least 120, 130 shots. So maybe it was just a weak offensive week, if you will. But I mean, this is a week where they had 3 games out of Toronto and Austin Matthews, 3 games out of McKinnon and Landeskog, 4 games out of Mackenzie Weegar, 3 games out of Dubois.
The boys.
They can't, these are good offensive talents, and if they're not going to rack up the shots, you're not going to see the goals
Hey,
follow.
I am not complaining if Evil has a down week. I just wish it would be against me. So
Hey, maybe this was a down week, and maybe this was an up week for Trent, but it happened. It's something Evil's maybe got to think about.
totally.
But yeah, let's keep rolling.
Move on.
Next matchup, we got look at that. We got you, Parker, and we got Jermakar, owned by Zac. And this one wasn't close. We didn't think it'd be particularly close. Actually, Zac was pretty close in a few of these categories, but just a runaway week from Parker if you think about it. Parker 1 plus minus by 1, saves by 6. Save percent was, actually fairly close as well. So, this was pretty close to being, an 8-4, 9-3 victory, which is still a sizable win. So good week out of your boys, or should I say your girls? Parker.
Girls.
Especially, I mean, I think almost everybody got on the stat sheet.
Totally. I kind of
the
pop
guys,
into
the few guys
27
that,
assists.
yeah, the few guys that didn't played only a couple games.
True, and then I guess we can touch on this too. My whole team is basically injured right now, so right now I'm super impressed with the depth I think I have right now. I think we've got a lot of depth, and like you said, we got the big names stepping up. We got the Lindholm stepping up, Conor stepping up. We finally got Tyson Barrie to get some point production last week. So, like I said, I love the depth we have here, and curious to see how we're going to go forward if we get some of these guys back from injury, if we can perform even better. So,
yeah, it'll be tough. I mean, Oshie's out for a few weeks now. I think it's 6 weeks with a broken foot or something like that. And he had 4 points in 2 games. So, I mean, that's going to be a big loss. But like you said, I think you're making the right additions. On the flip side of things, just not what you wanted to see out of Jermakar. Couldn't really hold up in peripherals. Got him in blocks. 54 blocks is good. Actually not too far behind on hits either, but just that offensive output's going to be something that he's chasing after all season. And like Evil, got to pump the shots up. But
totally.
not a horrible week, but I mean, he runs into a top team, and this is what you get. You got any thoughts on this one, Greg?
I think you guys more or less summed up everything I have to say, except for one thing, and that is Andrei Vasilevsky is finding his stride finally. Alongside a solid output from Darcy Kemper, that makes Parker's goalies pretty
Right back to where we
dangerous.
needed it to be. Once we get Mike Smith back, that's the goal. We're gonna get that trio back together, and then Jesse girls to the moon.
Yeah, you've got a very enviable top pair goalie tandem right now, and if you keep building on that, I would not want to be your opponent.
Definitely. Well, let's kind of roll this into the next matchup. And we had the other podcast host game. We had Greg taking on the Hanson brothers and Zac. And Greg, as we mentioned in the beginning of the episode, undefeated, the only team left to be undefeated. And Greg did it in a pretty good fashion. He scored 21 goals, 24 assists, had 154 shots on goal. And Greg's team, his offense is just exploding right now. And it's coming at a good time. It's getting Greg off to a fast start. And like we said, he's the only undefeated team. So curious to see how that is going forward. Greg also this week, huge week in hits. I mean, 86 hits is a ton of hits. So Greg's got to be happy about that. Out blocked him, out special teams goaled him, out special team assist him. The only category where Greg's goalies weren't as good, and I say weren't as good because Greg's goalies were still insane last week. But the Hanson brothers had him in a few categories in saves, goals against, and then save percentage. But those are all close. Greg, I say, very could have easily had a runaway week, maybe even a 12-0 week if his goalies just were a little bit better. Or on the flip side, Zac's goalies were a little bit worse. So a great week from Greg here. You got anything, Moose?
Yeah, good week. I love the weeks where it's an 8-4 victory, where someone wins all the skater stats and someone wins all the goalie stats. We almost had that, if not for a last-minute win from Greg. So it would have been something that looks, very, aesthetically pleasing. Not quite as nice, but I'm sure Greg won't complain, I guess, about breaking that up. A win is a win either way. And Greg was a goal off from the all-time goals record that was actually set by the Hanson brothers last year. So solid week. Can't really say much more than that. He beat Zac fairly handily in almost every category. Yeah.
Greg, break it down for us. How'd your boys do?
Yeah, how'd you feel?
Well, you guys keep talking about how well my skaters do. Maybe it's the pessimist in me, but I keep seeing I nearly got swept in goalie stats. It's something, when you're undefeated, you got to ride that for as long as it goes. But I'm worried about my goalies. I have been for what feels like all year. And this, again, it might be nitpicking, but when I like to look at a roster and see how I could improve instead of just resting on my laurels, because I really don't like getting complacent. But really, you can't really complain when you have a fantastic offensive week like I did. I hope I can build off that, but it's really great. And I keep talking about how it seems like I'm just getting consistent production from nearly all my players. And when one or two of them steps back, I have enough guys to pick up the slack. I really think the name of the game for me right now is just depth.
Yeah. Depth is hard.
Totally.
I mean, only so much the waiver wire can do for you. Guys get streaky, but if there's nobody streaky on the waiver wire, you start to run out of luck when you start to see those injuries. So, maybe, you'd have to rely on a call up from Vasily Podkolzin or something. And you probably don't want to do that, when it comes down to a clash of 2-0 teams, but you got out with the W.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't want to say I escaped with a win because winning all 8 categories isn't really an escape, but I never feel like I have the win in hand until it's the last game on Sunday. But with that in mind, let's go to a matchup where one team definitely did have the win in hand when it came to Sunday, and that was our last podcast host, Artemi's Breadmen, beating Hi, I'm Mr. Meeseeks by a very similar score of 8-3-1. And this was another one where your offense just outclassed the competition. You didn't have the best week in goals, which is seeming to be a recurring trend, but 24 assists, that's 11 more than than Mr. Meeseeks. 11 special teams assists, which is 10 more. And you swept goalie categories, which was huge. I mean, Alex had a very good week rates-wise, a 2.0 goals allowed average, a 9.38 save percentage, but you managed to top both those marks, get an extra win in there, get one more save in there. I mean, it was good. Your peripherals and your goals still, though, they're a little concerning. I mean, or at least they're a little lacking. And I want to know if this is really a concern for you moving forward, because as it stands, like one special teams goal, you were lucky that you tied Alex in that, and 43 hits, 35 blocks are both, you lost those categories by double digits. So what's
I'll
going through
kind of
your
hop in
mind
here.
when we talk
I
about
know
that?
Andrew and I kind of talked about this earlier in the week, and I'm curious to hear his input after kind of the week's over. But we talked about this earlier on, and this game or this matchup was really, really close, and it really could have gone one of two ways. It could have gone as it did with Andrew getting the win, but like I said, if some of these peripherals, or let's say Alex's team got another special teams goal, he got a few more, got a win, got a couple more saves. This could have been almost a tie, or Alex's team could have even flipped it. So, Andrew, how are we feeling after kind of like I wouldn't say like a down week, but not as a strong performing week.
This was about as disappointing as a win could get. And I know it looks 8-3-1, yeah, I should be feeling like Greg. I should be feeling pretty good. I can't get mad about losing 3 categories, but you say a sweep goalie stats, and the goalies put up a great week, but so did Alex's. And here's the thing. I was looking at it. Thatcher Demko on Saturday night went against Edmonton, and he allowed 2 goals. Had he only allowed 1 goal and made 1 extra save, so if that second goal didn't go in, all of a sudden the matchup goes 8-3-1 in my favor to 6-5-1 in his favor. That's how close this was. And it was, terrifying. I was thinking about starting Carter Hart, and had I done that, he allowed 3 goals against Calgary, I would have lost the matchup. So, the goalie stats were a sweep, I suppose, but it was not comfortable. It was not satisfying. And, to your point on the peripherals, I'm starting to worry. I didn't really worry about peripherals at the end of last year because I had so many people hurt that I could, pick up Yanni Hakanpää, Nikita Zadorov, and Ryan Reeves and just kind of stream the hitters. But now people aren't hitting. Zach Hyman's focused more on scoring goals than hitting, which, I mean, I guess I can't complain about too much, but when I'm losing hits by 22 a week, I'm starting to leak categories left and right if the rest of my team isn't perfect. So not a satisfying 8-3-1 win. Hoping to bounce back in a greasy one versus Evil, where I don't have enough time to fix peripherals. So my team is just gonna kind of, pick up the pieces from last week and just get out hit and out blocked again. But we'll see.
Yeah, it'd
It's
be interesting because there's a philosophy that I fully subscribe to, which is, this is something we've even gone back to and talked about on the podcast a couple times, but using maybe an extra roster spot for just a full-on hitting enforcer type defenseman. I mean, I've sort of pioneered the use of having only 3 goalies and using my 4th goalie spot for the zero offensive talent but incredible physical presence of Radko Gudas. And with you not using Carter Hart as much, with you not using Marc-Andre Fleury as much, have you given any thought to dropping or trading one of those 2 guys to add a more physical presence on your team?
no. And the reason is I like having 4. I like the strategy of having 4. I'm kind of stuck with it. Because at this point I need to make, if I had traded a goalie away for a hitter, it's still not going to fix the problem. So I need to make a couple more drastic changes to my skater group before I start thinking about giving up on my goalie strategy, because this far into the season, my goalie strategy is by and large worked. So I'm pretty happy with where I'm at. And I'm cursed with knowledge that my goalies have started out pretty well this week too. So on the weeks where they're good, I should end up sweeping goalie cats. And where the weeks that they're bad, I can try to rely on volume. So I like the 4 goalie strat, but organizational change is needed if I'm going to be competitive in either hits or blocks. And I don't know what's wrong with my plus minus either.
Plus minus is a fluke. I mean,
When you say
Parker's
that, I mean, I've gone minus every single week so far. So
yeah,
I
you're
guess you can
minus.
say it, but
Listen, you're talking to someone who started out the first month of the season with some insanely inflated plus minus number and ended it like bottom three. It was bad by the end of the year. I'm plus 40 right now. That's not going to last. You're minus what, 21? That won't last either.
We hope,
yeah, definitely.
but I guess we'll see. You want to keep let's
Keep chugging along here.
rolling. Yeah, let's get into the next one, which is Yuki versus Evan, Team CCM versus Team Shaw, and this one was actually fairly close. 6-4-2, going in favor of Team Shaw, sends Team Yuki down to 0-2-1. Shaw improves to 2-1. And this one, they split goals and assists, so they were actually pretty on par offensively. But Team Shaw just ran away with the goalie stats, and that was the difference maker. 4 wins, 157 saves, a GA of 1.694, and save percent above 94%. That was enough to outclass Yuki, sweep the goalie stats. And despite a low peripheral and shot week, 88 shots, 36 hits, 34 blocks, the goalies were able to cover for him, tie up plus minus special teams goals, and walk away with a narrow win. So this got to be disappointing for Yuki, but the goalies he started this week were Dustin Tokarski and Kevin Lankinen. That's just not going to cut it. And poor Robin Leonard's out here posting a solid and respectable 2-4. But, when you start the backup in Buffalo and the backup in Chicago, good things are not going to happen. So, I don't know.
Certainly, I want to add too, Evan's team is now, 2-1-0. So he joins that group of, I think it's 4 or 5 of us now that are 2-1-0. And I know Evan was a team that, at the beginning of the year, all 3 of us were saying that he would maybe have a down year and, he wouldn't perform as well. How do we feel about Evan's team being 2-0 and, kind of, making a presence in the league, showing, other people he's not as bad as he seems, or his team isn't as bad as we thought they seem. But I'm curious to see what you guys have to think about that.
Yeah, he looks like he's got a good squad, and we know he has a good squad because he started out last year, 6-0-1, something like that, and then he went on a catastrophic losing streak that kind of ended his season there. But this is a team that I think either beat or tied Evil early in the season, so I don't know. It's an impressive roster. You got Mark Scheifele, Joel Pavelski, Neil Pionk, Quinn Hughes. Good roster, but they came to play this week, and shows the power of setting active lineups.
Yeah, it's a good roster. I might pump the brakes a little bit on overhyping Team Shaw because his 2 wins have come against 2 teams that combined have not won a game yet. He did have a really good matchup against Ratatouille, which looks to be a very good team, but I feel like this is not really a week he'd get away with, but it's a week that helped sort of obscure the weak points on the team, those being peripherals. And he got a great week from goalies, and you can only play the teams that are in front of you, but I would like to see him get a good statement win against a team that might, I don't know, put up a more competitive week moving forward.
Yeah, that'll
Definitely.
be
Yeah, I agree. Once he gets maybe, I don't know if he's played any of us yet. I don't know if he's played. Have you guys played him yet?
Nope.
No, he's played Ratatouille,
Conor
Jermakar, and
this week.
Yuki.
Okay, so yeah, so not the top team. So like you said, be curious to see how he does against a top tier team. But I guess we can kind of roll that into our last recap of the week, and that's going to be our marquee matchup from last week. And it was the Stromes against Ratatouille, and Cam's team came out on top 8-2, putting him at 2-1-0, and then putting the Stromes at 0-3. Big question marks here for the Stromes. 0-3. We'll start it like that. Only team without a win thus far. Is it time to panic there? We'll get to that in a second. But Cam's team, 142 shots, 18 goals, 14 assists. This matchup was close. But Cam's goalies inevitably kind of won this matchup, posting the better goals against average, the better save percentage. They had more saves. And then an obvious standout, probably the most standout category is the special team goals. Cam's team had 5, Connor's team had 0. So
Wow.
I'll go back to the point, boys. Is it time to panic if you're the Infinity Stromes? 0-3.
I mean, this looks bad. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but like the only category that was convincingly in Connor's favor was plus minus. And we all know what plus minus is. It's a crapshoot. But winning assists by 1, tying special teams assists, tying wins, you need more across the board. He had a good week from his goalies, but I mean, even if he flips rate stats, which were the only ones in his reach really, Ratatouille just had one more good start. That would still just bring him up to, I mean, what, 6-4-2? It was not a good week by any stretch of the definition. And I mean, when you don't get a single power play goal and when you get single digits goals overall, only 93 shots too. Like this is, I'm not sure if it's a panic button moment yet, but something has to change.
Yeah. It's worrisome when your big names go silent. I mean, Mikko Rantanen missed a couple games last week. So he wasn't available, and he's still, I guess, dealing with an injury. David Pastrnak was absent. He put up 13 shots, but 0 goals, 0 assists, and -3. William Karlsson, 1 assist, and now he broke his foot. Adam Fox, I guess, doing all he can, and Chandler Stevenson, but the rest of the team, you're Ryan Strome, you're Dylan Strome, you're Philip Forsberg. All of these guys putting up 1 point or less just isn't what you want to see. And a league low in goals this week, and with just 7, and low on peripherals too. So it maybe if it's not time to panic, I think the talent is there for him to maybe sneak into the playoffs this year. But it's certainly time to be asking some questions about what your players are doing and maybe looking to make some moves.
But I was going to say, at what point do you try to, start to get some trade stocks? Do you become a buyer? Do you become a seller? At what point do you do that? And kind of going back to what Greg was saying, I don't think you worry just quite yet. I mean, it's week 3, I guess week 4 technically now. Maybe I'd say maybe give it 2 more weeks, but beyond that, if you go 0-5 to start the year, you need to start asking some serious questions, and you need to make some serious moves, whether it be selling or inevitably trying to buy your way back and pull an Andrew last year and have a miraculous comeback. So it'll be interesting to see how he performs going forward.
Yeah, not every 0-5 or 0-4-1 team can wait it out and sneak into the playoffs. But there's a lot of weeks in this season, so I don't think anybody will declare themselves a seller by week 5. But 22 weeks in the regular season, once we start hitting that week 10 mark, and you start to start playing teams the second time, that's when you got to start asking questions, see if you can, on the back half of matches, start winning more consistently. But 3 weeks in, maybe these guys are off to a slow start. My guys are off to a slow start. So I mean, that's just the way it goes in hockey, a very streaky sport. So
it is.
Andrew, how many times do you think you said start just then?
I would probably conservatively say 9. I couldn't even start to count them.
We'll have to throw in a start counter this week.
Yeah.
That's really funny.
Oh my goodness. But wow.
Alrighty.
Yeah, a wild week 3. Upsets, disappointments, really a range of emotions, blowouts, tight games. There were no ties this week, unfortunately, but really a great one. And let's look at the standings for our pick'em so far. And what would you look at that? So Parker and Greg tied with 4 correct each this week. I had 3 correct. And that, that's enough to slide Parker into first on the year. 11 correct for Parker and 10 each for Greg and I. So we're within striking distance. So I guess we'll have to make some more picks this week, but we'll get to
This
that.
week.
We'll get to that later in the episode, as always. But I don't know. This is the week of Halloween. Are you guys kind of feeling a little
It's a spooky week.
spooky? Yeah, maybe a little evil.
Oh, we dropping hints.
Oh, I think
I think
Andrew
we're
is
dropping
teasing
more than
us.
hints.
Is Andrew teasing us again?
never. I never tease. So without
Listen.
further ado, how about we bring him on in, huh?
Let's bring him in.
All right, and now we're going to welcome in 2 out of the 3 members of Evil. Welcome in Erik and Sahil. We're so happy to have you on the show. How you feeling on this Tuesday night, guys?
I'm
Good,
pretty
how are
good.
you?
I'm feeling good. Greg, Parker, I'm excited to have 5 people on at once. I don't know about
I
you
know.
guys. It's going to be a
we got
little
full
chaotic.
room.
It's going to be a little chaotic, but it's going to be a lot of fun. So we're happy to have you guys on.
Well, we are evil, so chaos is kind of our whole thing. So I'm excited.
It is
Awesome.
indeed. We got all
right.
the big dogs in the room in the league too.
Yeah, this is an intimidating
Environment.
yeah,
say.
there's a lot of, I think, all 2-win teams right now in here, and even last year, this is all playoff teams minus, if Greg had a half win more.
Yeah, all 2-win teams, he says, and all playoff teams last year. It's like you're deliberately trying to ignore me.
Hey, no, your extra win this year makes up for you not making the playoffs last year.
Yeah, that's great. I'd rather have one more win in the regular season than a playoff trip.
There you go. That's like the Colorado Rockies for you. But again, this isn't a baseball podcast. This is hockey. So I guess one of my first questions for you guys is, how do you sort of split up responsibilities? I was talking with Parker and Greg, and we were trying to figure out which branch of government each one of you guys would be. And we kind of came to the conclusion that maybe Sahil is the executive branch, that Erik is the legislature, and that Zane is the judiciary. But if you guys have any input on, how you guys work as a team, as well as sort of your political role as a part of Evil.
Yeah, I pretty much do nothing other than make occasional comments in the chat. And Erik sometimes will be like, hey, I'm thinking about making this move, or I added this guy. And I'm like, I support whatever decision you make because it's probably the right one, because I don't know what I'm doing.
A figurehead who is the rubber stamp for Congress. I think we've got our executive branch, lads.
Pretty much every time I say something in our group chat, Sahil responds like within a couple minutes, like, yep, sounds good, something like that. But
Spur of the moment.
That's
I'd
like
say-
how I am with Daniel in the baseball league, where he'll send me a text and it's like, yeah, so I've been thinking about doing this deal for this player. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds all right by me. I don't know enough to disagree.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know, Erik, I guess what's your sort of strategy for going through the season? I mean, you guys are a big hits and blocks team, and it's definitely showing both on the score sheet and on the record for you guys. So how did you kind of construct your team from the draft, and then as you go through, your waiver wire pickups?
Yeah, I mean, going into last year, I didn't really know a whole lot about hockey. Neither did Sahil, neither did Zane. So we just kind of put together some rankings a week before the draft. We had like one column, I don't know, ESPN or something, one NHL, and then one was like a stats column just I made from projections. Then we just averaged out the 3, and then we draft based on that, which like moving younger guys up the list pretty much. And I guess the fact that we did that kind of bumped up all the hits and blocks guys, because I feel like they don't give enough respect in some of the rankings. Because is this a standard settings for the league, or do they not have hits and blacks?
This is not. So a lot of them have hits. ESPN wants people to have penalty minutes as a standard category. But I added
Get Tom
in
Wilson on the phone.
I added in hits and blocks. I split up power play points. And then
And you did away with face-off percentage, right?
face-offs wasn't standard.
Yeah.
I don't think it's standard, but it's in some
That'd be an
leagues.
interesting category to
Oh,
talk about
and
future.
then I removed shutouts, and I added, I think, just net saves. So, but it's pretty similar to standard, just with a couple of modifications. But yeah, hits and blocks are not in standard scoring leagues, and I think the point you make is spot on, that these hits and blocks guys are way overlooked. Like Brady Kachuk may well be one of the most valuable players in the league, just because he hits like 5 people a game and still has enough scoring to end up in the top like 30% in points every
Yeah.
year. It's insane.
Yeah, it's really interesting too, because it means that you can't really use percentage rostered as much as other leagues can. Like, I'm looking at my possibly favorite defenseman on my roster, which is Radko Gudas, who is rostered in less than 10% of ESPN leagues. However, in our league, he is the 14th overall defenseman. And it's not because he has a talent for scoring. He has 0 goals, all of 2 assists on the year. He just murders people and gets in front of the puck. And it's really funny to see how that skews things. I think because I came from a similar place as the Evil Triumvirate, where I didn't know a whole lot about hockey. And I was doing a similar rating style thing, but I don't think I put enough weight on hits and blocks. And I think that's really the difference between where my team's at and where your team is at, or at least was last year. So it's funny to see how that affects the league and how that affects what teams can score.
Totally. I kind of want to ask you guys this question. I know we're kind of, digging into your team. What do you think's your strength right now? Like, obviously you got some pretty stellar forwards, but what do you guys think's your strength right now is, and what do you guys think you want to maybe improve on this season, or maybe make some trades to get this sort of player, or this type of category, fulfill those stats. So curious to hear.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, hit some. Oh, what'd you say?
Kristen Yari is our strength.
Yeah, what do you think he said,
Tristan
Eric?
Jarry.
Obviously.
It had
Hey,
to
the
happen.
Vasilevsky Jari slander, it's here
Yeah.
for it. But my boy Vazzy's finally starting to pick it up. So
Yeah,
we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, I think our strength for sure is our hits and blocks, because I think we're either 1 or 2 in it this year, and I think we were either 1 or 2 in it last year on the season, right? But yeah, anyway, our weakness is definitely special teams, goals, and assists, because I don't think we put enough emphasis on that last year. And I mean, we kind of just ignored plus and minus, because I feel like it's kind of fluky, right?
Plus minus is super fluky. I
Yeah.
mean, I remember starting off last year as like plus 20, and then I cratered.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
No,
And then
it's
yeah, I definitely think our goalies are a strength too. I mean, I wish Sorokin. I mean, he's actually playing a lot, so hopefully he keeps that up. And maybe when Drieger comes back, or Spencer Knight. I mean, didn't Spencer Knight take over for Sergey like in the playoffs last year?
He
he
did last
did,
year,
yeah,
but
but
Sergey
Bobrovsky's
is
got a
showing up well this
he's
year.
got a
Yeah.
1.8 goals allowed. So it's kind of, yeah, I was envying your rookie goaltenders. I'm glad you mentioned that. But it looks like they'll both start in timeshares, but even looking forward, come 1 or 2 years from now, they're both going to be locked into a starter role. So that's something I'm super jealous of, as I've got the aging Marc-Andre Fleury taking up space on my bench.
Yeah, I know. When we did the startup draft, like we had no idea when we should start like taking prospects. So I think it was like, I don't know, 15th or 16th round. We just decided, oh hey, maybe we should take some of these guys. So we took like Byfield. Then we took Sorokin and Knight like shortly thereafter or something. So there was definitely a point of emphasis to get young goalies.
It's funny too, because I feel like we had really, really similar approaches to the draft. Like, I distinctly remember, because I had one pick after you or one pick before you, and there were definitely times where you took a guy I really wanted. I'm looking at Jacob Slavin, who's now on my team. Thanks for waiving him. I'm looking at
No
Ivan
problem.
Provorov. It was just really interesting to hear how your draft strategy differed from mine. But I think a way that we were really similar was that we both targeted goalies very early to try and get a franchise guy. I went with Igor Shesterkin, and I traded up for him. And how about because this is a huge point of contention back to before the league even played its first game, was I want to hear more about the selection of Tristan Jarry.
I mean, I don't know. He was what, like 10th or 9th or something in well, what was last year in 2019 to 2020? I think he was like 9th or 10th in GAA. So like he's definitely pretty good. And like, yeah, realizing it now, he didn't have a whole lot of track record, but we just picked him because he did like really good the year before, and he's like pretty young. So yeah, that's kind of why. And luckily, he's doing good so far this year.
Yeah, absolutely. It was, I mean, because it
And he
was a
actually did
huge,
pretty good after his slow start last year too. So
Yeah, he did.
yeah, it
He's
was a
the
huge
goalie.
gamble, and I think it's paying off pretty well for you. When I remember going off, I was like, you guys took him before guys like Tuukka Rask and Carey Price were off the board, and now both of those guys aren't really playing as much. Frederick Anderson went later that round, 48th overall pick to Jari being picked at 39. But he even had to sit through a year where he wasn't performing up to standards in Toronto. And I mean, only now in Carolina is he looking really good. So this is definitely a pick that time is looking back on a little more favorably.
I have to say, I
I'm not
think
only going to say that. You guys are talking about your goalies being such a strong suit. I mean, I look at your forwards. I mean, you guys have insane forwards. You have Austin Matthews, Nathan McKinnon, Gabe Landeskog, Pierre-Luc Dubois. You guys are pretty stacked up there too. So, and I know you got Kucherov, and he, I don't know what his problem is. He's always hurt. But you guys are stacked on that side of things too. And every time I think I can say this, I can speak for all the podcast hosts here, and then everyone in the league is every time we play Evo, we're always on that nervous side, and we don't think we're going to win. So,
yeah, I mean, you got to think our man Kenny Hatch, who you don't have enough time for at the end for Austin Matthews right there.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'm hoping we still have time to get Kenny in on this episode. So I guess we'll have to see. But yeah, you guys really pulled off the fleece of the century that made me question draft pick trading, because I just didn't think anybody would be that dense. Yeah. I don't know. I can't even describe. Yeah. You must be. That had to be a peak moment, because really that netted you, I guess, no, not Nathan McKinnon, but it got you Austin Matthews at least.
No, it got them McKinnon.
Oh, got the McKinnon. Wow.
They picked at 5. I picked at 4.
Oh yeah.
Oh, was it a trade with Alex?
You traded up with Kenny to 9th overall. Then you traded up to Alex to 2nd overall with Alex. And I distinctly remember this because I remember Alex Fisher saying that the 2nd overall pick is on the block, and I really wanted McKinnon. I wanted to move up and get McKinnon at 2. So I send a DM to Alex and I say, "What are you looking for the 2nd overall pick?" And he says, "I already traded it. Sorry."
Oh wow.
And like, to whom? And then not 5 minutes afterwards, I see that you traded, what was it? It was 2 third rounders and some later pick for 2nd overall.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I do most of the work nowadays, but I think Sahil and Zane were for the big reason for that going through. I mean, we kind of like, we're just figuring out what to do, and now Sahil's big in trades, and like we didn't do any of our draft before that, so Sahil was just making a bunch of trades, and it worked out.
Yeah, that was a mad amount of draft prep because I remember trading up with you. I went to get either the 20th or 21st overall pick, and I thought I gave up what was a little heavy price, but ultimately worth it, I think, because that's what got me Sebastian Aho. But like, you then sent something to me that was like, "We're looking to move up to the 1st round. We have a deal lined up. Would you be interested in giving up the 4th overall pick for a 4th rounder and 5th rounder," or something like that? And I pretty much laughed you guys out of the chat. I was like, "There's no way anyone's going to make that deal."
Kenny
2
Hodge
seconds
did.
later, who takes that deal?
Classic.
When we get him on later this episode, I'd love to ask him about what was going through his mind.
Yeah, we'll have to. We'll add that to the list of questions to ask Kenny Hodge. But I'm glad you mentioned, what Zane and Sahil did before, because I know Sahil is probably one of the most active people in the Dynasty Hockey chat. I'm very happy about that. Is he sort of the engine for trades? And do you guys have any in the works because of Sahil, or
he's the hype man?
Very much.
Yeah, I feel like there were points last year where like I would maybe like reach out to somebody if somebody put a player on the block. I'm doing a little bit less of that this year. I don't know for sure if any of them necessarily led to deals. I don't recall off the top of my head how many in-season deals that we made, but definitely like before
It was
You
the
didn't
zero.
make any.
started, or before we like even did the inaugural draft, there was like quite a push I made because like it was easier for me to evaluate how to maybe rank draft picks just because that was more numerical. Not that like obviously you need to pay attention to like tiers and drop offs and stuff like that, but like it was a bit easier to look at things numerically. And it was also at the same time I was looking at things numerically for the basketball draft and draft pick trading there. So that made a little more sense to me to look at it through that lens. But yeah, I think Eric's slowly taken over. I'm in so many other dynasty leagues where it's just sometimes a bit hard to, keep up with this in addition to, all the schoolwork and stuff I have. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
I know I'm still not nearly as knowledgeable in hockey as you guys, but it helps that the Red Wings are a lot better, and I have more reason to watch them this year and like learn more about the sport.
yeah, it's cool for you and kind of for me as a Seattle fan, where you get to become a hockey fan as your team is sort of building up to become a contender. I think that the Red Wings are going to be better sooner than the Kraken will be. But like you guys, I mean, what a job Steve Weiserman has done out in Detroit with building up a team the right way, the smart way. He's made seemingly all the right moves. But what Sahil said, I think this is kind of funny. Going back to making trades, you haven't made a trade since January 10th last year, or I guess this year, when you and I swapped minor depth pieces. Like I gave you a defenseman and you gave me a prospect back. So I that to me just tells me that you have built a contender off of drafting, but I think more importantly off of the waiver wire. Now, I don't blame you if you don't want to give away all your secrets, but just what does it mean to you and to your team for the way you have trawled the waiver wire to find these overlooked gems like Chris Dreger, like you had Joel Eriksson Ek on your team for a while. Walk me through a bit of that because you were really the master of building a good team on the wire.
Yeah, I mean, everyone knows that's how I like to play fantasy. But honestly, I know we've talked about it a lot after like the season ended and like towards the end of last year. Like this league, the waiver wire is the best by far out of all four dynasty leagues. Like there's so many good guys on there. Like basketball, there's like nobody. Baseball, there's a decent amount of guys. Football, it's and you can find some gems, but overall just not great. But yeah, so that kind of made it easier on us. But yeah, and I like to go through the box scores and just look at the free agents every night and see who's good.
I want
Yeah,
to
I
say
think
that's props to you too, because I know Andrew and I have been around hockey for quite a while, and him and I coming into this knowing a lot about it, and this goes for you too, Greg. But then you guys just step in, you like assume this role as a fantasy manager in a sport you guys are unfamiliar with, and you guys end up, like we're saying, you guys have a great team and you drafted well, and it's almost like you guys have been watching hockey for the entirety of your life. So
it's this way in every sport with Eric. I swear every time I'm like, oh, I should go pick up this guy off the free agency market. It's like 80% of the time that player's already on Eric's team and he beat me to it by like a day or two. And I'm like, damn. And every time I just get more and more angry and I'm like, I'm going to beat him one of these times. And I just don't.
yeah,
So you beat me
It's not like
to
super hockey because I don't have to worry about that.
you did
That's
beat
the
me to
real
mini trout.
Yeah.
that's the real insight into why Evil formed in the first place, Sahil. You just got tired of having to compete with Eric and figured it would be best to join forces.
Pretty much, you take my trait prowess with Eric's ability to do the waiver wire, and Zane's obviously great skills in fantasy, and you just create this giant evil conglomerate. It
Well,
works.
it's interesting too because Eric has talked about how he's getting into hockey a lot of time, and what's really helping is following the Red Wings. Sahil, you like Baltimore doesn't have a hockey team. You're living in North Carolina, but I don't know how many Hurricanes you can even name. How like I'd be interested to hear like how are you approaching hockey fandom or just learning about hockey?
A lot of it's through the chat, admittedly. So it's like I've gotten to know who some of these players are through the chat. But like I went to one Hurricanes game a couple years ago. I've been to a couple Red Wings games while I was in Michigan, but I mean, it definitely expanded my fandom, but like it's also like just time constraints and just the other sports and everything. Like I haven't become totally, 100% all in on it. And if the time was there, I'd definitely like to. But I feel like with the basketball and the hockey league starting at the same time, and with owning my own basketball team, I kind of was forced a bit more. And I already had a little more knowledge of basketball going in, but I was kind of forced more to put some of my attention into learning a new sport there than the hockey league. But I like to think I've learned a bit more this year than I have than I did last year. So it's been fun. And honestly, I think the hockey league, more so than the other leagues, is just like, I feel like the chat is really active and kind of fun to talk in. So I think it's a great environment, and that definitely helps. Definitely my second favorite league environment behind the baseball league, just because of how much I've invested in that league.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is I love how engaged we all are on the hockey channel. Like getting the weekly Rutto from Cam, hearing, Andrew put out content like the podcast, which was really his idea, but also stuff like the preseason predictions, and then making sure to tag everyone who got a certain question right once that happens. It's the little things that really add up to making just an overall fun experience, I think. It's definitely helped keep me engaged throughout an entire season.
Oh, I agree. It's those little things. I feel like I think Andrew does a great job of that. I know Cam and I are thinking about copying some of the podcast ideas over, and I'm sure Erik has also discussed copying some of the ideas that are Andrew has done as commissioner over to the baseball league and maybe the other leagues as well, football and basketball. But yeah, it's great. It's exciting. I definitely enjoyed filling out the predictions for the season, and even though most of them were just kind of trolly responses because I didn't really know who to say what. I think it was like the first goal of the season, and like I named the guy who scored the first goal of the preseason because his name was like already in there, and
Billy Sheehan.
yeah, he's like they're like third string guy, and I was like, oh, you know what, maybe maybe everybody else gets hurt, but maybe I should have taken a one look at a depth chart before I submitted that. But it was fun. No, I've definitely enjoyed it, and I can't wait to be part of this league for the years to come.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I appreciate the praise, but honestly, I mean, so much of the hockey league success can be sort of attributed to the baseball league. I mean, if you look at one thing in particular, you will notice that the prospect spreadsheet is a dead ringer for the prospect spreadsheet in the baseball league. So I do have to give a good bit of credit for a lot of the organizational aspects of it to Erik. I mean, just the way he's organized the baseball prospect spreadsheet has leaked over into the hockey league, and it's made my life so much easier as a commissioner to try to keep track of prospects and whatnot. So he's making my life a lot easier.
Yeah, thank God for Erik and the spreadsheets.
Stay tuned. We might have another something big coming up in a few months, maybe.
Oh,
yeah, I have a little bit of an idea of what this is. This is gonna be a lot of fun.
I'm very much looking forward to that.
Anyway, just going back to like overall fantasy hockey, it's so like different too, because the goal is like in football, if like you just trying to get points. In basketball, like all your players can contribute to all 9 categories. In baseball, it's like half and half. But here, it's not half and half. It's like what a quarter and 3/4 or something like that.
Yeah, it's
So
I would say
4 and 8.
2/3, 1/3.
Yeah, it's 4 and 8.
yeah. So no, I haven't had much time to like watch non-Red Wings games this year, but I know last year, when like I was just still in school and like didn't have a job and stuff, I absolutely loved watching games where like my goalie, like the evil goalies were in it. Those are so much fun to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. There's the running joke that I've become a Carolina Hurricanes fan for no explicable reason, but I mean, you sort of gravitate towards the teams your players are on. And once I got familiar with Carolina from watching Aho play, from watching Mrazek and Nedeljkovic play when they were the two Carolina goalies, I became more familiar with who was filling what role, and that allowed me to pick up role player guys like Jordan Stahl, who I'd see contributing to the box score in a way that people who weren't watching those games wouldn't really notice.
Yeah, I think it's kind of fun to have a bit of a parasocial relationship with some of your players, whether I'm sitting at home, just kind of watching on TV or even just following the stats live. Or I went to a preseason Rangers game with Alex Fisher, and Artemi Panarin scored 2 goals, and I was screaming my lungs out because yeah, you got to root for the home guys, and the guy that my team was named after just was out there having a ball against the Bruins AHL team. So it
Well, I just
was a
want to
ton
say,
of fun. I
from
don't
my
know.
perspective too, I've been playing hockey since I was 5 years old. So I've grown up
Yeah.
with the sport. I've watched hockey my whole entire life, and it just even like in the podcast, you're just hearing this. It's like I think it's not only great for the sport. It's great for like you said, the banter and the channels. Just having fun, and I think like you said, it's why this league is one of the best. So it's a fun sport to just watch, and then it's an even more fun sport to kind of build your own team and compete with other people on a
Yeah.
week out basis. So.
And how about ESPN Plus getting all those games too?
Oh, it's so
Well, let's
nice.
not talk about that. Let's not talk
Having
about
Hey,
ESPN.
having ESPN Plus ahead of time was just like this was like the greatest gift because I felt like I was wasting so much money. I guess it's not that much if you have the Hulu and Disney whatever bundle, but now I
Yeah.
can watch whatever broadcast.
Hey,
And I
we'll,
guess
we'll
it's
keep the
nice.
ESPN theme music, but I want to get rid of the broadcasters.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
we could broadcast better.
They show the home and away broadcasts. They'll show the syndicated games on ESPN, but the ones on ESPN Plus are just
Eh?
like free streaming. It's
Huh.
sweet. Yeah, it's so nice. Very
Well,
accessible.
there's sometimes when it's on ESPN Plus, but it's not on Valley Sports Detroit, which kind of pisses me off.
Oh, that is okay. That's weird. Oh, I don't like that, but I don't know. I guess you can always head over to your morally questionable streaming sites. But oh my goodness, no, this really was a great segment. I want to thank you guys so much for making the time to come onto the podcast. We're obviously, we call you the villains of our league, and you call yourselves the villains of our league. And every team wants to beat you for a reason, and that's because you are one of the best teams in this league. So always a pleasure to play you, and just awfully great to have you on the podcast here today. I'm glad we could work it out with 5 of us in one Zoom room just chatting about hockey. So Greg, Parker, I don't know how you guys are feeling, but this is pretty cool.
Yeah, totally. I was gonna say thanks for hopping on, guys. It's kind of good to see into the brain of evil, see how it kind of works out. Like so curious to see how the season go. Maybe I'll have you on in a future episode, kind of break down your season a little bit more. But yeah, thanks for stopping by. It means a lot.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure.
Thanks for
Thanks for
having us
having us.
on. Yeah, honor to be on the podcast. It's been great being able to listen to it. I think you all have done a great job, and yeah, I'm excited to see what else you all have in store for the podcast moving forward. And good luck to everyone this season. Hopefully we can actually get over the top this time and win and not lose in the finals. Although I was pretty impressed we made it to the finals as is. So
Yeah,
I,
you guys are proving yourselves to be the Vegas Golden Knights of fantasy hockey.
I will divert your attention for, I guess, 30 seconds more and say this is the week of our championship rematch. And we didn't really get to devote a lot of time to that, but good luck this week. It's already shaping up to be a very interesting matchup. So, I'm my heart rate's been going at about 120 for the last 48 hours, and it's going to continue to do that for the next 5 days. So,
I'm
it's
excited. Yeah, I have some big matchups across the M-SABR Dynasty leagues this week, but I don't think any of them is as big as this one because this one is a finals matchup. So yeah, I'm excited. I'll definitely be paying a bit more attention this week than I usually do, just to see how this all plays out. But yeah, best of luck. It's going to be fun. Hopefully we can move to 3-1. I see this whole glut of 2-1 teams. I have to say, this is like the weirdest like standings distribution through 3 games I've ever
For
seen.
real.
This
And then you
this
got
league
Greg.
is
Greg
so
shocking the world. Greg
so
shocking the world
even.
is the lone undefeated team.
Maybe not shocking the world, shocking myself, yes. Shocking
Shocking
Parker,
me.
yes.
I was gonna say.
I know a couple people who thought my team was going to be good this year. Maybe I should have believed them more. I'm in a dogfight with Alex right now,
Well, I mean,
but
you pick against yourself every week, so I mean.
hey, I picked myself against Conor, and that was the week I was most in danger of losing.
Hey, yeah, we'll see what Greg has in store for his picks this week, I suppose. But what an even league, I guess, if you look at it. And I think Conor at 0-3, really not deserving of that record. But I guess we can look at the Rado and whatnot later. But
Yeah.
anyways,
Colorado?
Well, this will be huge too, because like I want to see who from this 2-1 glut is able to win this week and get to 3-1. Because I think that'll be. I mean, it's obviously early in the season, like it's not going to really determine much, but it would definitely be huge to. Or I guess Cam plays Parker, but I was gonna for a second it was only us versus you, Andrew. That's a 2-1 v 2-1 matchup, but
no, this is two big matchups this week, and I guess it's still early in the season, so it's not super important. But every win is big.
Every week is important. I was gonna
every
say.
week is equally as important if you think about it. So
you could just ask me with last season how it literally came down to the very last game of the year. So I'd rather get the wins now than later.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, guys, thank you so much for hopping on. I'm,
Yeah.
not looking forward to playing you this week. I never am, but it's always a pleasure. And you're always welcome back on the podcast. And hopefully, you guys can make another trade before it ends up being 12 months since the last evil trade, because I feel like at that point you just have to dissolve.
Yeah, we do. Just feel like Thanos, man. Just like you snap the fingers on that year mark and we just disappear.
Yeah, I think at November 9th, if you guys, or January 9th, excuse me, when you guys haven't made a trade yet, you should just accept the first trade offer that comes into your inbox.
Oh, yeah. It'll be a race between you three to see who gets to our inbox first.
Who gets McKinnon?
McKinnon.
Yeah. Well, you should trade him to me so that I can flip him some inordinate price to either of these two Avs fans here.
No.
Just a little collusion for you.
I'll give you one Mike Smith for him.
Oh, what a deal.
I will say one person in this Zoom call did inquire on McKinnon the other day.
It wasn't me.
Yeah. So
good luck trying to get him. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, well, we're looking forward to having you guys back on the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us for a very evil Halloween. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for Erik and Sahil.
Yeah, love it.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
Keep up the good work.
And if the muted claps from Parker Bach weren't enough, we'll give it a wrap on
I did
this
it last
segment.
week. I did it last week. I got to do it again this week. So.
All right, so we'll take a break and we'll be right back right after this.
They did the Monster Mash. The Monster Mash. It was a graveyard smash. They did the mash. It caught on in a flash. They did the mash. They did the Monster Mash. The zombies were having fun. The party had just begun. The guests included.
And that was evil. Who cares to evil? Or no, we care about evil. They definitely don't suck. And boy, was it a treat to have them on the podcast. And not just any treat, in the true Halloween spirit. They were an actual full-sized Reese's cup candy bar, Twix, whatever strikes your fancy this Halloween. But always great to have those guys on the podcast and tell us more about their nefarious plans for the hockey season.
Alrighty, and that brings up to our matchup picks this week, and we're going to go in and dive straight on in. Our first matchup we're going to go in and pick this week is going to be Hi, I'm Mr. Meeseeks versus Captain Char Boarding Party. I'll let you go first, Andrew, and I'll follow it up, and then we'll throw it back to Greg on his pick for the week. Andrew, how you feeling?
I think Alex had a pretty impressive week last week. Despite the loss, he kept it really close, but Greg just had a week where he could not be denied. So I'm going to pick Greg for this one. I think he's going to keep the momentum going on.
You know what? I'm going to go the same exact route. Give me Greg. Give me 4-0. Greg is going to keep shocking the world, and I guarantee he's going to pick against himself again this week. And I feel like that's helping. So let's see what he has to say.
Well, see, now if I pick for myself, I'll have jinxed it and I'll lose. So you really put me in a damned if I do, damned if I don't situation. But that aside, I think I'm going to win this one. I think it'll be close. I think it'll come down to one or two categories. Alex can match me stride for stride in peripherals. He's got a very hitty, a very blocky team. He's got one of the Kachucks, and we all know exactly what they bring to the table.
Oh yeah.
I think that my team is just everyone on my team is hot right now in terms of scoring output, and I think that continues even if it drops off a bit. I'll be okay, and if my goalies have a better week than they did last week, I should be all set. So I'm giving myself.
Wow, 3 for Greg, and in a week where Greg picks for 3-0 Greg. So I guess it'll be interesting to reflect on this in a week's time and see how well that pans out. Let's go to the next one. Another podcast host, Parker, and he is taking on Cam this week, who was an absolute force the last couple of weeks. I don't know. I'm gonna let you guys pick. I got to think about this one first. I guess I'll let Greg go.
All right. Yeah. Cam has definitely been a force. He's been a real dynamo after a bit of a slow start, slow first week. On the same way, Jesse's Girls has faltered a little bit. One storyline to keep an eye on is the emergence of Sean Monahan. He's finally putting it together. He has 4 points as of tonight. All of them have come on the power play. So if Sean Monahan starts going back to the Sean Monahan of a couple of years ago, this is going to be a very, very dangerous team that just added another really good scoring element. I'm leaning Cam, but these are two very good teams, and I wouldn't be surprised if Parker wins either.
Greg,
So which is it?
Greg putting
Give me
Cam in
Cam.
the books.
Cam?
Yeah.
Oh, well, Greg, you're going to go and say falter. I don't know if I should pass it over to, I think it's pretty obvious. Can't pick against Jesse girls. We say it every week. I've got the girls, but Greg, you say falter. I think it's quite the opposite. But half my team's been injured and the boys are still buzzing. I think I had 27 assists last week. I led the league in that. I had another high week in goals. My goalies are back on point. I think it's quite the opposite. I think Jesse's girls are starting to come into full pace here. And, like I said, once we get the injuries back, I think it's the girls to the moon. So I've got me. Andrew, I'm curious to hear what you got to say.
Something any given Sunday is the only thing that comes to mind when you say how you did last week. But there is something to be said about streaky and something to be said about momentum. Both of these teams are streaking, and both of these teams have momentum. So it's a hard one, and I'm going to use my tie of the week on this one. I'm going to call this one a bona fide tie because both teams are cooking right now. And that brings us into our third matchup, which is Conor, a struggling Conor versus a 2-1 Evan. What do you guys think?
Conor versus Evan, like we mentioned kind of earlier, we got the Stroms here. They're 0-3, and then we got Evan's team a surprising 2-1 to start the year. This I think could go really any way. I want to say I want to see the Stroms finally start to hit their pace. But like you said, with William Karlsson out and Pasternak, he's not really hot right now. I just don't know. So I'm going to have to I think I'm going to take Evan again this week. I think I'm going to have to take Evan.
Yeah, Evan's in a bit of an, maybe not an unfortunate situation, but a bit of a silly situation where if he wins this week, then we all get to say, well, he still hasn't beaten a team that has a win yet. But if he loses this week, then we'll use it as maybe confirmation bias that he hasn't beaten one of the really solid teams yet. That being said, I'm worried about the Infinity Stroms, and if they put up another week like they did last week, then Team Shaw is going to capitalize. So I'm going Evan and Team Shaw.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, I think you guys are certainly making good points, but I really think this is going to be the week where Conor's team snaps out of it. I guess I've said that the last 3 times. I'm looking at the sheet here. I'm the only team that's picked Conor more than once. And I'm going to pick him again. This team until I die. So I'm going to take Conor this week because, I mean, I just look at the team and I think it's really got a lot of talent on it. So maybe this is the week where they string it together. Maybe not, but I'm going Conor.
Totally. And that's going to go and roll us into the next matchup, which is going to be an Ohio State Buckeyes Trent's team against Team CCM of Yuki. And this one, I think, is another toss-up. I mean, we got Trent's team coming off, I believe, a win last week. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, over Evil.
Over Evil. So he's hot right now. The boys of the Fuck Guys are hot right now, whereas Yuki had quite a rough week last week and is 0-2-1 to start the year. I'm not liking what I see out of Yuki's team right now. I'm going to go Trent this week.
Yeah, give me Trent. This is the seeding group showdown, if you will, and I'm sure Trent and Yuki will have a lot to talk about hockey-wise as they sit together and watch Michigan play Indiana this weekend. But I think that I've seen more from Trent and what the Fuck Guys can do than I've seen from Yuki and what Team CCM can do. And I don't want to sound like a broken record in terms of injuries, but I just think that Trent has more star power and he has more depth right now, and I think that's going to carry him to a win this week.
Yeah. I'm with you guys. I think the momentum carries on. I think Trent makes himself a very solid 2-2 team. You know, while Ovi's hot, you know, you gotta ride that wave. And if Connor Hellebuck actually starts to put together some quality starts, then Trent's going to be an actual force to be reckoned with. So give me Trent as well. We'll go Trent all the way. And we'll use that to look into our next matchup, which is a fun one by name, but not quite the marquee matchup of the week. We've got Zac and we've got Zac. Zac v. Zac. We got the Hanson brothers versus Jermakar. And I hate doing this, but I got to take the Hansons here.
Oh, really? Well, I was just saying before anything, I think I got to take Zac this week.
Oh, really?
You know what? I got to go with you, Parker. I think that no matter who ends up on top this matchup, Zac is going to walk away from this feeling pretty good about his team.
I do too. You know, I think Zac is going to have a good week, regardless of who wins. And I've got Zac.
You know what? I think I got to be right there with you, buddy. Give me Zac.
All right. See,
and
what?
Andrew is lost.
Oh.
And as Andrew tries to figure out exactly what Parker and I have said, that takes us to our marquee matchup headgear selection of the week.
I think you're
Oh, boy.
Are we going with the Artemi's Breadmen breadhead? Or are we going with every villain is lemons is lemon head? No matter what happens, we're going to be putting some food on our heads. So let's hear what you've got. Andrew, I think I'm going to go out on a limb and say you're going with your team, but let's hear it from you.
Yeah, I got to take the boys. Championship rematch. And I'm going all in on myself. I don't know. Huh. What do you got, Parker?
I've got Zac. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. This is you know, it's one of those matchups. I think I've said it like 3 times this week that could go any way. Evil is coming off a loss last week. Andrew's coming off a close win. Andrew's team hasn't been performing quite as high lately. Oh, I've got to take Evil this week. I do. I think I got to take Evil. I think the peripheral categories are going to give them the dub this week. I think the Breadmen gonna struggle to score a little bit like they did last week. I hope I'm wrong. I hate picking against the fellow podcast host, but I just think that's what it's gonna be this week.
Well, at least it gives a very interesting position for our guest picker. Let's bring him on.
He's back.
John Madden.
John Madden.
Who the hell is John Madden? I think you know what your guest picker sounds like these days. Let's talk about that, but let's not talk about that. Let's talk about Andrew, and let's talk about Artemi's Breadmen. Now, this is a team, I like to call them Tinder. You know why? Because they take a lot of shots, but they don't score. But I want to talk about Evil, too. I went with a tie, And that didn't turn out so good. Evil proved me wrong, and they proved me right by beating Jesse's girls. They can beat the top teams. We know this. This is a finals rematch. One team beat the other. I think one team's going to beat another one this time. There's not going to be a tie. We got Evil. They're going to outblock the Breadmen. They're going to out-hit the Breadmen. It's up to goalies, and it's up to Can, a team that doesn't score. What does this point to? Does it point to Evil? Not so fast, my friends. All the shots that Artemi's Breadmen are taking are going to find a net, and we're going to see the Breadmen win. Give me that bread hat. I'm going to make a Corso sandwich.
Thank you, John.
Wow, that's not John. That would be Lee, Andrew.
Oh,
I'm ashamed you did that. You did that to him twice. Poor guy.
but you know what? You know who it
You know
wasn't?
he might not come back now. I mean, we got to be nice to our fellow friend Lee. So
Do you know who it wasn't? It wasn't Zach.
If Lee Corso came in here and picked Zach, I think you'd have kicked him off the show.
Yeah, we probably wouldn't invite him.
and for that reason, I'm taking Zach.
Can you guys actually clarify your Zach picks?
Yeah.
Zach.
So Andrew, Parker picked Zach, and I picked Zach.
All right.
What's not clear about that?
I hate Zach v. Zach week.
And we all know what that sound means. We are out of time on today's podcast. Thank you so much for listening in. Apologies to Kenny Hodge. We didn't get to you, even though we mentioned we would try our hardest to get you today. Beyond that, I have Zach this week. Make sure you tune in next week for another episode, another great week of recaps, and we'll see you then. Take care. This has been the M-SABR Dynasty Hockey Podcast. Who cares? You suck.